don't expand too quickly and cut ourselves too thin, that we're not doing a good job on where we are already there. We do have liaison folks on there, so we have another committee which is a technical committee. That was basically the farmers, and now we decided, well, ADEQ, we have the person that's overseeing the executive director of ADEQ in the States. She decided she wanted to be on this program. And so we have some folks there that oversee the technical side of what we're doing, why we're doing it, keep us straight. We wanted to have some protection, the question I asked earlier, for farmers, and we tried to get ADEQ and EPA to give those farmers some protection from being cited if there was a problem, because we know we might find problems on these farms, but they wouldn't. They wouldn't write anything in paper, but basically a gentleman's agreement that if you do find a problem because they're working on this program, we'll give them some leniency, and then you can document to show that they're doing their best with the resources they have to address that issue. So that's always a question, and I think, you know, we talked about it earlier when we go interview and we ask farmers, would you like to be involved in this program? The first question they always ask is are EPA going to come and knock on my door? And we can't say no. And unfortunately, I'll touch on this a little bit. EPA are very aggressive in our part of the country, and I suspect they're coming to a neighborhood near you too. If they're not already there, they're coming. And they probably would be coming further if they hadn't been sequestered and lost some dollars. They would be even further. So these are the farms that we have. We've now got 8 farms, and as you can see, we're scattered a little bit. And I'm just going to briefly go, so I'm not going to talk too long because I know I'm between you and lunch. But in the northwest part of the state, if you don't know, we have our beef poultry production. As I say, it's the second in the country, and it's basically all concentrated in this area. I think there's about 2 billion birds produced each year. I mean, it's a huge number. It's not there because Ag needs that, those nutrients. It's there because there's an infrastructure, because there's feed mills and different, the system, the strategically it's built there because it's the best, cheapest way to produce protein. And so it's not there because those soils were infertile or they were row crop. They produced a very synergistic beef cattle production in synergy with those, because they're using those nutrients. And now we've come into an issue that we're going to have to address is lawsuits. And so we have a couple of lawsuits, sorry. The water, basically in the Illinois River, and there's another one up here in the Uchispavanor drain into Oklahoma. And again, this is one of the things that you're going to get. Probably is not going to go away. The issue, once it crosses a state line, Oklahoma say this is a scenic river, and they have a .037 criteria on that, and so everything's got to be at or below .037 total P, which, as we've already heard, some folks say that's probably what's coming off some forested areas. That doesn't matter. Sorry. If you're from a regulatory point of view, it doesn't really matter. That's what's happening, but that's the limit. That's the limit above which they start to see degradation in these areas. And so that's put pressure. And it really created an issue with us because farmers don't want to open themselves up in a litigated watershed. They have started to now. The poultry operation here is just outside the watershed. Basically that requires them to all have a nutrient management plan to operate or to even to apply anything, whether it's fertilizer or manure. But it's allowed a very good, prosperous beef production because there's cheap source of nutrients. They got better forage production. They could run more cattle on the same acreage of land. And what this has happened with the nutrient planning going towards phosphorus rather than nitrogen-based is cut back their litter applications by 2/3. So they were applying about 3 tons per acre. They're now applying 1.3. They're not getting enough nitrogen. Some of them are trying to offset because they're not making any money selling the litter. They're basically selling the litter for the same price that they're having to get bedding material for the house, and it's a recycling process there. We have seen some evidence of numbers of animals being reduced because of the reduction in allowable regulated levels of nutrients that can be applied, mainly nitrogen. They're not putting on enough basic enough nitrogen, not getting forage. There, especially this last year when we had the severe drought, we saw quite a dramatic reduction in number of cattle. And so, you know, there's an economic impact. And so a lot of the things that we've seen and we've heard is the indirect effect of some of the consequences that we're seeing are what we really, what the basically the poultry farmers are not suffering because they're producing birds. It's those that were benefiting from that really good source of nutrients that are really suffering. And so we're trying to help them with this part of this Discovery Farm program. If you go down in this area of the major issue here is when you talk to farmers last year, basically they go to bed, the last question they're asking themselves, the husband and wife, is will we have enough water tomorrow to survive? And so that's the key question for them. So we're focused on water quality, but most of our farmers, water quality is not their concern. They don't have enough water for it to be running off in a lot of these cases. Water quantity is their major commodity for survival. And so we're really trying to look at maybe rotations, different systems that are economic to improve water use efficiency. And so again, we just talk about, you know, like everybody does, these are the farmers. We just trying to do this just to show they're real people, that they are not something that people just don't understand who aren't involved with farming. And so these are the different farmers that we've got working for us. That's half of them. And so I don't have any data, but we've got some numbers. I'll mention them. The first farm is Marley Farm up in northwest Arkansas. And here we basically had the same approach as Dennis did. Go talk to the farmer. What do you want us to look at? What do you think is your most immediate problem that you want to be addressed? And rather than us, Mike or I, going up there thinking we can do a better job than they do, we can't. And so he wanted to know what was the impact of his production facility. And so he wanted to know how much dust and spillage when they clean out these poultry houses. If you're not familiar with them, they clean out every about 6 weeks and they drag litter out. They move the birds every 6 weeks. They might clean out every year and a half, but they drag a lot of litter out and it stays there, it spills, it rains, it washes off. The problem with that is when EPA are doing their site inspections, and they do site inspections, they have been coming on these farms, even though they are not CAFOs. They come on these farms, spot checks. If they see dust outside a fan, if they see a pile of manure, even though it is spilled out when it's been brought out of the house, they can see it, so therefore it's a problem. And so that has become a real issue with these types of operating systems, and I know there's a couple of lawsuits over in the Chesapeake Bay in terms of runoff from actually around production facilities. So he wanted to look at that, and that's what we were. He's got 10 poultry houses. As you see, he's very good farmer, working with a very productive beef operation, and so it's synergistic. And so these are the houses. You can see the end of the houses where they will remove the birds, or the contract folks will come in and do that. So they're not farming. They don't have the same initiative to keep his place quite as clean. These farms don't do that work themselves. They hire it out. Therefore, it's somebody that really wants to get in, out, the next farm, and their criteria are not quite the same as maybe Jeff's is in keeping the place as spotless. It's a time. You got, as Joe and Don showed, you got certain things you got to get done. If you don't, and you only got so many hours in a day. And so, what's happening here is we have 3 sites and we're measuring in the pond. And so runoff from these houses here is going into the pond, and we've got a flume here. We have these 4 houses which basically collect water here. We've done some berming to concentrate flows into our monitoring stations. And then we have a grass waterway here and another monitoring device here. So basically what we're looking at here is trying to look at what's coming off of these houses. This is pretty closely linked to these houses here. It's not very far. How much that nutrients have been trapped in that pond. This pond does overflow slightly at certain times of the year, and so we've got a weir there. There's a lot, these 4 houses, just for the lay of the land. Again, we're not trying to change too much the land. We'll put our devices where we think we can collect water from a known area, most conveniently without affecting. We have helped the farmer offset some cost in fencing out this area, this paddock here, so that it's not grazed anymore. Because we didn't want to interfere with this idea of this natural buffer system, this normal grass pasture, a cheaper option than maybe pond construction. And we know there's issues that we're going to hear tomorrow, I think, a talk about some toxicity of algae that can grow in ponds that can cause issue with cattle drinking that water. So there's always issues. We're looking at other things with the emission. You can probably make out here this area is a little lighter, and that's the dust from the fans. It's emitted out of the houses. And so we will monitor it here as it goes into the flume. Again, we've got different stations depending on the size of the area that we're looking at, custom kind of tailored. This is the largest one we've had. The grass has grown up around it now. This is the flume 2, and you can see, I think here there's a 3rd flume. And so it's about 100 meters of grass that it goes through. Jeff thinks that will be enough. It's a very it's probably less than 1% slope, so it's a very slow slope.
That other flume, can you back up once? Was that built, or was that already some kind of a natural spillway in? Or because that's kind of a beast.
Yeah, the flume wasn't built. No, we bermed the area, so we concentrated the flow into this point. This was an area that was wet. That's where the water was naturally going.
Okay.
It was naturally going that way. We put a slight berm so it wouldn't divert off to the sides, and we could collect it.
And
yeah,
that's just a natural on-the-farm pond, or?
Yep.
Okay. And does it leave, or it's just stays
it
there?
stays there. It probably leaves once a year, possibly.
Well, it overflows?
It overflows
Okay.
occasionally. He's using it some for drinking water. There is another small pond down here, the White River, which is a scenic river, is down here, so it does get trapped into another one. Usually it doesn't overflow because he's using it. We have another farmer that we're working with who's actually filtering that water and using it as drinking water for his chickens. He felt that he could save money on his utility bill because he was on city water, and he has actually put a filtering system, is recycling that back into the house, and he got approval from his integrator to do that. He felt that health-wise the birds weren't going to, but he feels that putting that filtering and pumping system in paid for itself in a couple of years just because of the water bill. So there's, again, different options, but yeah, EPA say that's fine. That's waters are not leaving the farm as long as it doesn't overflow.
Just a point, because both Doyle and you're looking at what's running off the facilities or in his lot. We wouldn't be able to do this in Wisconsin because our allowable level of loss is 0 from the facilities if you're CAFO, and we knew that we would never get a 0. I mean, you know you're not going to get 0. So that'd be the difference between our states, because Amber said we don't do facility losses. On a permitted farm, you're only allowed 0. So it's good that you guys have the flexibility to at least be able to do this.
Did everybody hear that at the back? No. Dennis, do you want to say that again? Does this work?
No, that's for the recording of the. Just
Ooh.
so.
I thought you had to say it. Oh, there. He can say
The question was, Dennis made the comment that they really couldn't do that because, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Wisconsin,